Charleston, South Carolina native Jasmine Fripp is a newly appointed Director of Choral Activities within Nashville, Tennessee. She holds a Bachelor of Music Education from Winthrop University and is currently pursuing her Master's of Music Education at Belmont University. This passionate Black music educator has made it her mission to equip students in schools with predominantly Black and Brown demographics with quality music education. Welcoming to the TaeTalk, Miss Jasmine Fripp, and your host, your girl, future Doc P, Shantae Pittman.
Hey everybody, how you doing? I'm here.
All right, Jazz. So today we're talking about music teacher preparation in schools and HBCUs and PWIs. So as your bio stated, you went to Winthrop. I went to TSU. We're just going to go through real quick and discuss our experiences going through the music teacher prep program in each of our respective universities, as well as some problems and some solutions to some of the problems that we saw while we were matriculating. And then if we have any questions, we'll do some question and answering if we have some at the end. And then that's it. So let's kick us off. Jazz, let's talk about how your experience was at Winthrop.
I absolutely loved my experience at Winthrop. And it's weird saying that because I talked to so many Black people who went to PWIs and like they have like the complete opposite experience. But the reason why I chose Winthrop is because I felt like it was similar to my high school and where like it was diverse enough. And I didn't feel like, well, outside of classes, outside of my major, I didn't feel like I was the only Black person there, like that one token admission. So I thought socially everything was on point. Like the Black students came together and we created so many events and it was phenomenal. I felt like academically I was very prepared. Academically, Winthrop was tough, but it wasn't more so like the content, it was just really time consuming to complete the work. And you know, I felt like my faculty and staff, although it wasn't really diverse, I had one Black teacher and then there was another Black teacher who taught African American studies on campus, but I didn't take the class. Yeah, shame on me. And I regret it. Like that's one of the things I definitely regret because Dr. Belk is amazing. I follow him on Facebook. But like, although the staff wasn't very diverse, they were very supportive of anybody that I saw who went and sought out assistance. So I absolutely had a great time. And whenever I can, I make it a point to still go to homecoming because homecoming be live. And I still keep in touch with all of my classmates, all of the Black folk at Winthrop. Like the Black network at Winthrop is huge. So I still go there and make those connections.
Awesome. All right. So how was your process getting through prepping you for choral music education?
I felt like I lived in a practice room. Like if I wasn't in the practice room, I was in my room studying, and then like I literally had like Monday through Friday study and practice, weekends party. But you know, it was a tough process. Once again, to me personally, academically, it wasn't tough except for like music theory. Music theory, they gave me my money, especially music theory 3. But it was just time consuming. It was time consuming. Like I think my first semester was the only semester I didn't have more than 18 hours. That in my last semester, which was student teaching, which felt like 25 hours. But every other semester, like I was taking like 20 hours of classes.
Mhm.
So it like I said, it wasn't hard academically. It was just really time consuming. But I had
Right.
very supportive staff. The students at Winthrop, the music students at least, like we study grouped it out. Like it we had to. Like the only way we was gonna get through this thing is if we did it together. So
Mhm.
we locked
Mhm.
in, we
Mhm.
studied and did what we had to do.
Yeah. Cool. Well, it sounds like we pretty much had a pretty reasonably comparable experience. I graduated from TSU. Shout out Big Blue, what up? In Nashville, which is where you are right now. And I had a great experience. I marched in the band. I played in the wind ensemble. If you don't know, I was like instrumental focused before I actually started. I
Mm,
got my job as a choral director in 2010, and I really felt supported by my professors that I had there. Um, and despite it being a HBCU, we did have a diverse staff, which was really nice. And it was tough, like you were saying. That was one of the things that I feel like could really be different is the fact that we have so many 1 hour credit classes. Like you said, taking 18 hours, 20 hours. I took I took a full load every probably more than a full load every semester. I even did 2 summers to get done because I was like, okay, you can't student teach and do your senior recital at the same time during the same semester. So I got to push this out so that I can do this in the fall so I can student teach and be done. So definitely some things about curriculum. Music theory, like you said, oh my God, Jesus. And you can see it. Theory one and RL skills, the class be like 35 people. And then theory two, you got like 20.
half of the half
And
of
so it goes from there and from there. And then for my form and analysis class, I had like maybe 10 people? Like seriously. So it really is the strong have will survive in the music department, in the music ed department, especially because we have to be both the performer and we have to get that education piece.
we're
So that's
double,
a huge deal.
yeah, we're
That's
double.
a huge deal. Yeah, basically, yeah, we're double majors. We have to do music and we have to do education. And that was something else, something we can talk about on the back end. But I know one year, I think I want to say it was my spring year, my junior spring semester, my junior year. I had an overload of 22 credits. And then one of them I couldn't technically you can't take more than 21 hours, but
Mm,
performance seminar is no credit. So 22 hours to try to
mm.
get out. And it's crazy. And I don't think people realize um, how much prep that music teachers go through because like you said it really is like a double major because we have performance expectations as well as teaching pedagogy expectations. So
Then they don't
um
tell you about, like, just to piggyback, they don't really tell you about the fact that you gotta practice both voice and piano, and you played for the band, so you had to do 3 times the work, and then on top of that, you have to do observations, and we started observations, like, freshman year? Yeah, because we had to have at least 25 hours unless you were a teacher cadet, and I was. You had to have 25 hours of observation in order for you to get into the College of Education. And then you still had observations after that in the other classes.
mhm. um so talk about your observation experiences. For you to be a Black core music ed major, what were the schools like that you went to go see?
They were they were basically white choral utopias. and it drove me up a wall. Like, because I've always known, because even before I went to a collegiate PWI, like I've gone to actual predominantly white institutions from like fourth grade up until 12th grade.
Mhm.
And I knew that I wanted to work with predominantly Black students and brown students. So I'm just like, y'all ain't got no kind of diversity. I think the most diverse setting I was in was during my student teaching. Um, and that was maybe like, I would say at max 10 Black students.
Mhm.
Um, but the one thing that did really help me as far as observing, and I just so happened to be there. Um, During my student teaching, we had this thing, we would perform at state festival, and then my teacher would go back the next day to look at the 4A schools because we were in the
Mhm.
3A division at that time. So she took me with her to Columbia. And it just so happened that Orangeburg Wilkinson High School, which is a high school out in Orangeburg, South Carolina, they were performing that day too. And I saw them go up there. It was a predominantly, well, all Black choir. I saw them go up there. They performed a piece in Latin, and then they did a spiritual. And I looked at my student teacher advisor. I said, "That's the choir I want." I straight up, "That's the choir I want." Several months later, I interviewed for that job, and that's where I taught for my first 3 years.
Wow, that's
Mhm.
crazy.
So that was like the most beneficial one. That was the one I liked the most. But it wasn't like from field experience. It just so happened to be that my student teacher advisor took me to the right place at the right time, and I was able to speak that into existence. So
Yeah, I can definitely relate with my student teaching experience, especially because I was, of course, instrumental. Um, the people, it was predominantly white school that I was student teaching at both my locations. You taught at secondary and elementary for your time, and so it was interesting. But I could say you wouldn't. I didn't feel very, I guess you would say, prepared for the realities of different types of situations, like predominantly black or predominantly brown, or a mixture, or Title One, because Title One runs the gambit. It can be all white, rural, suburban, whatever, what have you. Um, and I think that's one of the issues that I find with teacher preparation, not just for black students, but for any student of any color, is that they're not really finding those teachers who are strong at these different types of settings. And so you have us going out into the world and kind of having to play it by ear once we do finally get out there into the real world. Um, so that's interesting. Um, let me think. Let me think. So, what? Um, Take it back a little further.
mm,
What really brought you to the choral world? What made you want to be a choral music educator, or who wanted to make you be a choral music educator?
I was about this close, this close to being a psychology major. So my high school teacher, Mr. Eeks, in ninth and 10th grade, he taught me everything I knew about sight reading. He taught me intervals, like he prepared me for college. And
Mhm.
then he left. Uh, and my middle school teacher came up from, because it was a 6th through 12th grade school. My middle school teacher came up and began teaching high school, and it was bad. Like he just didn't have any respect for the students. Like we were singing songs that we sang in middle school. He would not let us sight read. He taught everything by rote. And we were over it. Like, you're not giving us anything to work for. Like, and then on top of that, you don't even respect us. You put us in very awkward situations. Like, I was over it. So I checked out of choir during my 11th grade year, and so did the rest of the choir. Like, kids were skipping class and everything, which is very unheard of at
Right.
the arts. Like, you got kids skipping class? What? Yeah, it was that bad. So he ended up going to the national ACDA conference, and he pulled this man by the name of Dr. Jeffrey Redding. He was Mr. back then, but now he's Doctor. And like, he brought him to work with us, and I automatically assumed that he was just going to bring another white guy to come work with us. So when Dr. Redding came in that door, my mouth hit the floor. I was just like, he do what now? And like, he had already given a set of instructions, like, everybody move. I want my sopranos here, tenors here, altos here. And none of the Black kids sit next to each other. Move. I was like, okay, you gotta give me a moment, because you Black, and I've never seen a Black music educator. Like, that was mind blowing to me. So it was like within the first 30 minutes, I cannot remember the song, but it was a song in Spanish. And like, the way that he was the first director I ever heard like talk about the meaning behind the words of a song. Talking about, and someone can probably put it in the chat and tell me what song it is I'm talking about, but it's basically about this old couple. And I guess they were trying to spend their last moments together. And it, like, when he made us connect to that song and we had to hold hands and sing, and at the end of the song, it was nothing but tears and mascara down my face. I was like, that's what I want to do with the rest of my life. So that's how I ended up in choral music, because I felt like Black kids like myself needed that type of excellence in their presence, and to know that they can do exactly what it is that the teachers up there doing and beyond.
Absolutely. Oh, goodness. You just gave me springboards like several different things. But so representation. Representation is so critical. And so you see this hard push from our music orgs, from NAFME, from ACDA about diversity and inclusion. And so just a little bit of statistical things for the audience. 80% of the teaching force in public education is white. And so when you have the majority teaching the minority, because predominantly Black and brown students or students of low income are the students that are serviced by public education, representation matters. And we'll talk about Dear White Teachers on another episode, but representation matters. And so being prepared as a Black music educator is paramount, regardless of where you go. I know folks are like, oh, this about to be on HBCU versus PWI. No, because honestly, we're really two sides of the same coin. Like, we went where we went because that's where we were destined to grow. But the ultimate goal is to be that representation, and for the next generation of musicians and music educators and whatever, what have you. But we have to make sure that we're getting through. And sometimes I feel like we have columns and hoops and things set on fire for us in either type of institution, to where we are not being able to finish, or not being able to finish in a reasonable time. You got folks spending 5, 6, 7, 8 years in a program, and so we got some problems, we got some issues. And this goes from PWI or HBCU, because I've been to both. So, what are some of those issues that you have or you've seen coming from your school or coming from any PWI as a Black student?
Here's what I want people to understand. just because it's Black doesn't mean it lacks, and just because it's white doesn't mean it's right. Like, I've seen some HBCUs crank out some of the most prestigious conductors, vocalists. Like,
Mhm.
that's one thing I've always admired about HBCU students. Y'all know how to hustle. I don't know what it is, but y'all know how to hustle. And it's such a beautiful thing to see. Like, I Patrick Daly, sir can network his tail off. I've
Mhm.
seen him do it, and I'm just like, okay, interesting. And I'm sitting here taking notes. But like, I've seen HBCUs crank out some great people. I've seen PWIs crank out some great people. I've seen HBCUs where the kids struggle. I've seen PWIs where the kids struggle. And
Mhm.
it's a hot mess. Like I said during my little spiel for solutions to racism with Roxanne and Kendrick, like I was dead serious. Old girl came into grad school. She was white, literally thinking that the letter H was a part of the musical alphabet. Like it was bad. And I get that Germans got some kind of there's a H and a flat and some that's besides the point. I'm just like, what but the biggest problem for me was one, the staff lacked diversity. In the music department itself, there wasn't a single Black teacher until after I had left.
Mhm.
And I'm not sure if she's still there, but she ended up taking over for Jazz Voices, and she does amazing work. Um, the staff wasn't really diverse. The music wasn't really diverse. Like, I really wanted to sing jazz music, like hard down jazz music and neo
Mhm.
soul.
Mhm.
And I told my voice teacher about it, and she was just like, okay, and never touched back on the conversation again, to the point where like I started looking for other voice teachers who was like going to give me that experience. Um, Even down to like choral lit, we didn't talk about Black music.
Mhm.
Like the only time I got to sing Black music within the music department was the finale of the chorale concert.
Mhm.
Um, Typically Moses Hogan. But and Jazz Voices, and like after one of my teachers left Jazz Voices, another teacher came in. And by the time he came in and like changed all the repertoire, added instruments, take out instruments, carried the two, it ended up being like another chamber voices. I was over it. Like I really wanted to sing and do Black music. And because they lacked doing that, so like they lacked diversity so much, whether it was within their staff or within the music that they taught when it was time for me to teach Black kids, I'm not even gonna hold you. I struggled with the repertoire because I was like, okay, well, in all honesty, they've sung a lot of spiritual, so maybe I should introduce them to other stuff. And then like I wasn't really comfortable like that's something
Mhm.
I had to learn over time. And
Yep.
thankfully, like with the different ensembles that I put myself in, like gospel choir, and now I'm a part of the Wakanda chorale, like that's how I'm learning all of this stuff. And of course, research. So it's a lot of self-educating. Other than that, I would say, and I want to get your opinion on it, I would say that the curriculum did kind of move fast.
Mhm.
And there was, I did not go to an HBCU, but I had a slight HBCU experience when I was in Orangeburg because when I was teaching there, I was next to Claflin University and South Carolina State University. And on
Mhm.
top of that, I used to road trip to Orangeburg a lot to visit some kids at South Carolina State, just to turn up or whatever. That's the point. Uh, so me and my homegirl, we road trip down to South Carolina State to visit some of the music students, and we were listening to them talk about some of the stuff in their curriculum. And they were like, yeah, we're doing this and this and this. And we was like, hold on, which music theory are y'all in? They was like, oh, we're like in music theory 2 or whatever. And we kind of looked at each other and we was like, that's stuff that we've been learning in music theory 1. And, at first I was just like, okay. But years later, I'm sitting down and thinking, what if all schools moved at a slower pace? Do you think that they would retain more of their music and music ed majors? Because I think what gets a lot of people is that we're like shoved with so much information at one time, and it's hard, like no matter how much we study, no matter how much we ask for help, it's like hard to keep up with all of that stuff. And then on top of that, unless you go on to get your doctorate in theory,
Yes.
when we gonna use that in the core classroom?
Thank you. Okay. Yes, absolutely. Okay. So I've taught AP Music Theory before. And the span of AP Music Theory, if you've ever been in it or taught it or whatever, if you know tonal harmony, chapters 1 through 12, that's about all that you cover. And that's really all that is over that, that course. And that's really all that you really honestly need, unless you're doing some major, um, uh, works like from WC or, with a lot of chromaticism and things like that. But it's like, we're not analyzing that music, we're singing it. I can sing chromatics, I can sing with chromaticism, but as far as these making sure we reading these and analyzing these tone clusters and all this other stuff, and I was like,
Why
why? Why? And then we're going through this theory, the westernized theory of the dead white men, and so it's not practical. It's not practical to us as Black folks, because you give me a church chord and I get on the piano and we there, but have me spell it out, have me go through and read it, and it's like, oh, okay. But had I had a teacher to connect those two together and teach that way, I think worlds of difference and worlds of change would actually come into play. Because I know a lot of fabulous piano students who come to TSU or come to any school, and they're like, I don't know if this is really gonna be it, because they're stuck in the classical performance mode, or they're stuck in the jazz performance world, when really you need to know everything, but you have to have teachers who know how to teach it. And so when you have an either or, you kind of stuck. And so if you're not willing to say, oh, I'm just gonna play all of these Bach preludes and cantatas, or wait, I want to play this jazz, I want to play this Dizzy Gillespie, you know what I'm saying? Then you're gonna have people leave. You're gonna have people leave the program because it's not serving them. So
I guess I don't understand, and help me help them. I don't understand why the praxis and colleges are so stuck on these old dead white men. Like, these kids, here's my thing, and it's Black, white, whatever. Like, these kids ain't trying to sing that. And you sitting here trying to retain core numbers in your choir and in your band, and like, you know how to analyze a cantata and sing a magical, but that's not what these kids trying to sing. That, and if you're trying to get a little money on the side, and you Black and you go to a Black church and you prefer to work for a Black church, they are not laid out on the floor to the latest Renaissance piece. Although, like, we can do it all, but that's not what they're trying to hear. So why not have some classes or some a curriculum based on like analyzing Black church chords, or like analyzing like, if we're going back to a cappella music or like music that kids like, why not have a course teaching you how to teach a cappella music, like your Take Six, Boys to Men, Pentatonics? Because I guarantee, like, if you're able to teach that and offer that to your college students, like, they'll go in so much more prepared and they'll be able to retain way larger numbers. And on top of that, like, talking about representation, whether it be on your staff and in music, like, if you're preparing not only your Black students, but your white students to teach hymns and spirituals and things dealing with cultural music, like, they won't be so scared to go and apply at these schools.
Right.
So that's just where I am on that. But
Look, yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I always wholeheartedly believe that students deserve high quality teachers no matter where they go to school, no matter what their zip code is. And, it's like, if you're not prepared, of course you're gonna be scared because you think, oh my God, I can't teach these folks. I can't. Yes, you can. If you have the right training, you can do and be phenomenal. I've seen plenty of lily white teachers teaching predominantly or all Black choirs and kill it. And their kids love them and they relate to these kids and you can see it. But I've also seen the opposite side where these teachers will go into these spaces of these talented kids and these kids be completely downtrodden, like you were talking about earlier in your story, because they don't relate or they don't challenge the kids.
Or they
and
don't.
So
like, one of the beautiful things, speaking of TSU, Dr. Kelly, I'm not sure if you were there during, okay, you want her babies? Cool. I love her. I absolutely adore the ground that she walks on. She is, like we said, lily white. But the thing that works for her is, one, she's herself. She don't try to change for nobody. She's going to be herself. She knows that she is a middle-aged white woman and she is perfectly fine with that in all of her glory. But she makes it a point to go out of her way to make sure she connects and relates to her kids and tries to figure out what type of music do you like to sing? Tell me about your experiences. She's more than just a professor. Like, she to some of those kids, she's everything. Like, she's an amazing person, and she's a white woman who was the director of choral activities at an HBCU. Like, if she can do it, any of y'all can do it.
Yes, absolutely. Whew, yes, hallelujah. Well, let me see. What was the question? Another question that I had. Oh, going back to the practice, MGRE, SAT, any of those standardized tests, they're not written for us. They not. But again, that's another TaeTalk for another time. But realistically, we all know that that's the problem. That is systemic. Those tests aren't made for us. So what are some things that we could do, or what are some things that the department chairs or the heads of these music schools could do to help bridge the gap, to help provide support for Black music students in general?
Once again, I think TSU does a beautiful job of this, in my personal opinion, from the outside looking in. Like, they have, and I work closely with TSU. Like, my kids typically perform at their concerts and whatnot. But they have a course dedicated to, like, let's prepare for the praxis. What I hated and loved about my school in particular is they just told you, okay, you need to take these 3 tests, figure it out. Like they left sis high and dry. And I already don't like national standardized testing. Like I took Praxis 1 twice. I took Praxis 2 twice. I took the PLT twice. I took all them tests twice. Um, I sure did. And it's okay. It hurt my wallet at the time and my pride. But the one thing I wish that my school didn't do is make oh no, I lie. It was my school didn't require they required that you had to do Praxis 1 and Praxis 2, but they didn't require that you take the PLT in order for you to go into student teaching and graduate. Like you at least had to take Praxis 1, Praxis 2 in order for you to go into student teaching. But the PLT was optional because they understood that not everybody wanted to be a certified music teacher. But the sad thing is when I was working in Orangeburg, I knew for certain that that hurt a couple of my friends who were music education majors or education majors, period, because in order for you to graduate, in order for you to take or do your student teaching, you had to take the PLT, the Praxis 1 and Praxis 2. Like it was mandatory. And I understand that they wanted to be able to say, we graduate with 100% certified teachers. I understand. But at the same time, you have to take in consideration that one, like you said, that test ain't made for us. And that test is not easy. And two, not everybody wants to be a music education major. Like they don't want to go into the field of music education. A lot of these kids just doing music education for a backup plan. Like they want to be performers, they want to be composers, they don't want to go into the classroom, and that's fine. And that's okay. But I say offer a course, and if you're not going to offer a course, and even if you do, because I just think it's crazy, like don't make it mandatory for the kids to take all 3 of those tests. Because I just nope.
Right. Definitely have some options. I know one thing I was wondering about with TSU, they've been in development of becoming their own, school of music and all those things, but it's just so many hoops that you have to go through in order to establish yourself. Like you have to have this many majors, you have to have this many people graduating. And it's crazy. I know. And I was telling you earlier this before we went live about how the master's in music program at TSU went from being under the music department and folded into the education department. And so it's a partnership. And so it's an awkward situation. But that's kind of how it is at a lot of HBCUs. You have a lot of, okay, well, I gotta do these standards and I gotta make sure I get these education standards, and we gotta kind of meet in the middle. And so you have education department putting these ridiculous requirements on top of music majors, and music majors having to take that on top of what they have coming from the music department, and it does make it very unbearable. And so being able, I guess, to streamline the curriculum and make it more manageable would kind of make things easier as far as matriculating through. Because I know, especially with student teaching now, you have to do it for a year, and student teaching is unpaid. So I was like, why in the world would you do an unpaid internship for a whole year? Like, we got other things we got to do. And with student teaching, that's all day. You're working 8 hours, and you're not getting paid for it. So like, what in the world? It's a lot. It's crazy.
When you say all year, you mean like the high school, like okay, for instance, I wanted to teach high school. So the first half of the year I taught at an elementary school for my field experience. Then I had my student teaching for half the year. So you mean they got a student teach the whole year?
Mm-hmm. Right after I left, thank the Lord, they changed it. And that came from the education department. They're making them student teach for a whole year. So in hindsight, you're making this be now a 5-year program, because remember, if you don't do your senior recital before you student teach, you can't do it. So you're making this a 5-year program. Meanwhile, down the street at Vanderbilt, if I do the 5-year program, I'm coming out with a bachelor's and a master's. I mean,
these are the things that keep me up at night. Like, no, like, no, absolutely not. Like, I remember coming in as a freshman, and this upperclassman looked at me and he was like, only 14% of music education majors graduate within 4 years. And I looked at him and said, well, I'm about to be part of 14% because the way my life scholarship is set up, he only lasts 4 years, and that's all y'all got me for. So when I loaded up on them 20 hours, I was like, And then my music theory teacher tried to tell me during my music theory 3, I just said that. She was like, yeah, it doesn't look like you're gonna pass this this quarter. I said, say what now? And no, the way your grades are set up, you're not gonna pass. I was like, nah, what I'm saying is, like, I'm not taking this class again. I'm a pass. So yeah. She just looked at me and I looked at her and I was like,
be like staring at each other, looking like Puff Daddy.
so when your office hours, because I'll be here. Okay. So.
Right. What test can I retake? Because like, oh, that's so crazy. One thing though, that I do wish there was more of, at my school particularly. I know it's gotten a little bit better now, but seeing more people of color, more female people of color as teachers, I want to say my experience, personally, I had Miss Diana Poe, who when I was there, she was the director of choral activities before Dr. Kelly got there. And she taught me choral music methods, which was great because I wound up having to teach chorus, which is awesome. Beautiful voice. SAI, love her. Yay, sister. And then my music ed professor, Dr. Reeves, she came in, I want to say my sophomore, junior year. And so those are bright spots. But as far as, all of the other realms of my degree through my matriculation, I wasn't seeing me, or I wasn't being taught by me, but it was around in the building. And so sometimes I think teachers forget that, again, representation is important, and diversity and inclusion is important, and all of this stuff, it really just, it combines on top of each other. It's weird to me sometimes when I go to different schools and I see no one who looks like me on faculty and staff. I'm like, what? Do I want to be here? So, those things matter. Not to say that, you're not capable of teaching me. It's just, how do I know that I can do this if I don't see someone who looks like me doing it well?
Mm-hmm.
So, ooh, Lord.
I had one Black woman teach me, and she taught Education 110 my freshman year. She was a Delta, and she made sure to let us know every single class. I was like, we get it, we know. Didn't say that out loud because I wasn't about that life. But So uh, I don't know. I've just, like I said, since the fourth grade, like I had a couple of Black students here and there, but by the time I got to like 10th grade, I literally was like the only Black kid in all honors and AP classes. Um, well, at least in mine. So I was kind of used to being in those white spaces and being that one Black person. And it just got to a point that I had to make that decision like, look, even if I don't see it, I'm gonna have to be it because someone else needs to see it.
Mhm.
So yeah, my one and only teacher that was a Black woman was my education 110 teacher, and I didn't see a Black woman in front of her like very own school choir, like going in her classroom or anything until I looked in the mirror at the age of
Mhm.
22.
Mhm.
So it, but I knew that they were out there. Like I worked with Lisa Oram, well now Fox. So and she's at Indian Land back in Lancaster, and then Shauna Bradshaw. They actually their schools feed into each other. So I know
Mhm.
they're out there, but I just never was able to observe any of the classes. But yeah, we definitely need more Black female music educators. And if you're out
Absolutely.
there, like, be my friend, please. Just I'm Jasmine Fripp on Facebook, Phantom Hip Hopera on Instagram, and I rarely go on Twitter, but I'm Phantom Hip Hopera there too. Like, just be my friend, okay?
Like, be her friend. She needs friends. One thing that I was really excited about after I graduated, because I didn't know anything about student chapters of ACDA. Now, I was all over the place, but I wasn't like in the choir technically because I was instrumental, and choir came at the same time as wind ensemble, and I was first chair. So
Oh,
anyway, so but I took lessons from William Krim. So that was my voice teacher, and he was trying to convert me the entire time I was there. I was like, no, no, I
mm,
can't. I can't. I'll be at school for a whole nother year. I ain't trying to do that. But luckily, I did have that experience with him, and I did have previous experience in high school with chorus, and I was able to make it shake when time came for me to teach it. But one thing that really did help me was just being covered with a bunch of mentors when I finally got into the field. And so once you get through that hoop, once you graduate, once you pass those tests, once you get certified, it still is a process that you have to continue building and learning and growing. Because once you get there, just because you got the job, it don't mean that you know everything. I'm
hello.
still learning. I'm still learning. I'm still reading. I'm still writing. I'm still researching. Got to keep it going because you can always sharpen yourself and always refresh. So, what are your last words, last takes, and things of that nature?
Yeah, like you said, I know people probably will say, oh man, they're not gonna tell like which school is better. No, that's not what we're here for. One of this conversation is for y'all to see that there's pros and cons. And a lot like if you get past the differences, you'll see that a lot of these programs are a lot alike. When it comes to like you deciding or you telling your students where to go, just go where you feel you can grow. If
Mhm.
you've been around Black folk all your life and you want to keep it that way, but by all means, baby, do you. If you feel like you've been around Black people all your life and you want to get that more diverse crowd, you can still get that at HBCU, or you can go to a PWI. Like if you feel comfortable going to do you look at the stats, look at the graduation rates, see how many students within a program like graduate in 4, 5, 6 years, see what kind of money they're gonna give you. And it's just like buying a house. When you walk on that campus, you'll feel if that place is right for you. Just go where you feel you need to grow. Because at the end of the day, like we're all Black people, period, are needed. Like and I've said this before, in HBCUs, we proved that we can build and run our own establishments. In PWIs, we can strive and thrive and be successful even in white spaces. Like both of these students are needed. So go where you feel you can grow. Like it doesn't, just because we have different Black experiences doesn't discredit your Blackness. You're still Black. Like just go where you feel you need to grow.
Absolutely. And come and choir directors, come and recruit. Like come and recruit, baby. you got schools that will ever come to these schools because they're afraid of these schools and completely bypass so much talent just because of the stigma of Title I or the stigma of it being an urban school. And then you got these ridiculous audition requirements. I mean, what? Why is it that these 24 Italian songs are the standard? But you got musical theater on one of these lists. So why don't you have this style, this style, this style that I can do well? Oh, okay. So you guys are already buffering out a lot of talent simply because of audition requirements. Things to think about, guys. Things to think about.
And just because a student can sing a particular genre that you deem suitable doesn't mean that they're going to be a good student and don't really attest to their work ethic. But you know.
Sips tea. Yeah. Well, it's been a pleasure, my darling, as always. But again, Miss Jasmine Fripp. Say your Instagram and Twitter handle again for the people.
Follow me on look, I'm rarely on Twitter. Follow me on Instagram at Phantom Hip Opera. Phantom Hip Opera. And I post all the time on Facebook, so you can find me and my revolutionary self on Facebook, Jasmine Fripp.
If you haven't seen or read her letters to white choral directors and Black choral directors, you might want to go check that out. But yes, and again, I'm your girl, Future Doc P, at Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and all those things. If you're catching this on YouTube, like and subscribe. And yeah, we'll catch you next time on TaeTalk. Bye.